I'm Gary, just an ordinary bloke doing stuff. Today we're here in the garden to look at growing a classic fragrant herb, the cook's best friend, that's basil. Growing your own basil brings a new world of freshness and depth to this famously aromatic, versatile herb, staple of both Western and Eastern cuisines. Along the way we'll have a few top tips and tricks to help things go easily. Remember, I'm not a professional gardener, I just learnt this stuff by trial and error. That means I've made the mistakes so you don't have to. Let's get going. The variety you can get pretty much everywhere is called sweet Genovese. This is the classic one to use in all Italian cooking, pestos and things like that. But it's really easy to grow all sorts of other varieties. For example, if you've gone sweet Genovese, why not go for its purple cousin, sweet Genovese red, or purple ruffles? Both of them will give your salads amazing colour and even work with things like strawberries. Here's the ever popular Mrs. Burns lemon basil. As its name suggests, got a beautiful zesty lemon edge behind the flavour of the leaves. But there are so many more available for you to try. Here, for example, is a pack of mixed seeds. This one includes holy basil, lime basil, a Thai variety called Siam Queen, which is amazing, Mrs. Burns lemon there, purple ruffles we spoke about earlier, Thai licorice basil, which has got a really intense aniseed edge, the classic sweet Genovese, and sweet Genovese red. Right, and so on to planting. And here, the first top tip for today is when you're planting anything, when you're putting soil into planters or pots or anything like that, use an old paint roller tray. It gives you a nice reservoir of soil. You can keep that moist if you need to, if it dries out a bit. But then if it spills out, it doesn't matter. You can clear it out of the way. It doesn't go all over your floor or all over your table. Now, you need some propagating trays for this. I like to use these small 6-cell ones, especially with something like basil, because the seeds propagate at different rates. You don't want to end up with half of your propagating tray with one type that's already gone an inch or two too big and the other's not even germinated yet. So 6 cells, all the same type, makes it nice and easy. So we just loosely fill the trays with some of this enriched compost. There we go. And now the second top tip is, if you get a tray like this and from another set, and just tamp it down a bit, you can do it all in one go. There you go. It's set down from the top, so you've got room to top up with a bit of the compost, and it's firm enough that the seeds can germinate and grow strong roots, but not so strong the roots can't get through. So onto planting. Here we've got some sweet basil seeds. Very small, but big enough still to pick up, and just want to pop like a couple in each cell, not too many, don't want to overcrowd them. There we go. Lovely. So seeds are sitting on the surface of the compost. What you get then is some of the really fine seed compost we saw earlier, seeds and cuttings compost. And just sprinkle that on top just a little bit. Don't want too much, don't want to bury them too deeply. Okay. Now basil likes darkness to germinate in. It doesn't like to germinate in full sun. So when you've put your lid on top, what you can do to darken it is to put on a black plastic bag like these compostable ones, that dog poo bags that you can buy very cheaply, and then put another lid on top. That will do it nicely. Alternatively, and the way I like to do it, is to spray a spare one black and pop it on top. Does still allows you to use the vent on top to regulate the humidity inside, and that'll help your seeds germinate beautifully. So here we have an example of why we don't mix seeds within a single propagator like this. On the right here you can see the sweet Genovese of well sprouted. They're going to be ready to pot on in about a week, whereas the holy basil on this side hasn't actually propagated out through the soil yet. These take about 2 or 3 weeks longer than these, so ideally fill the whole thing with the same seed. Potting on the seedlings really couldn't be much simpler. Here in my roller tray I've got some enriched compost and I'm filling a fibre pot to around about 3/4 full and then gently firming up the soil. We need then to make a small hole or trench with a spoon for the seedlings. Now if you have more than one seedling in a cell, you do need to gently tease them apart. Make sure you're only getting the roots from one if you can. Plunge the spoon down, scoop it out and then into the hole in your pot. Then what you need to do is press down nice and firmly around the seedlings to start giving it some support. You might want to then just top up the soil some more, but all the time make sure you firm it down well and just keep away from the stem so you don't hurt the plant at all whilst you're doing this. Then as usual we need to water in well, use a fine or medium spray to avoid damaging the plant. Give it a good old dousing and this will help get proper root contact in the soil. Then last but not least, always remember a label because these basil seedlings all look the same when they're this age. Another top tip, if you find your fibre pots dry out too quickly where you are, whack them into a larger plastic pot like this. This will reduce the water loss, but it still keeps all the benefits of having the roots able to go through the fibre. So after about 10 to 14 days, depending on the variety, you'll probably see the shoots start to come up, and then give them another couple of weeks and they're ready to take out of the germinating cells and put out into planting pots like these fibre pots here. In the front you can see Mrs. Burns Lemon, which is a brilliant variety of basil. We also have here sweet Genovese, we have lime basil, we'll even have a Thai licorice basil in the back. And we have some lovely red-leaved varieties like Genovese Red and Purple Ruffles. They add a lot of colour to salads, but they just punch just as much flavour into their red leaves. Beautiful things, make amazing pesto as well. So after a few more weeks, they'll be ready to go out. They'll be planted near the tomatoes, just because tomato and basil goes so well. They grow well together, they eat well together. Now it's just a case of planting out, here into our raised bed in front of our tomatoes, but it could be into a larger pot for the patio or a sunny windowsill, maybe even in your kitchen. You can see that the fibre pots we've used when we potted on can go straight into the soil as they're biodegradable, and the roots just push right through them, and this minimises any possible root damage. Do remember that when you put the pot into the ground, you need to make sure to press in the soil all around it. This firms up the soil in general, which gives the plant support, and it also gets good root contact so the basil gets established properly. Oh, and don't forget the labels either, so at least you know what plants you've got. Here you can see we've got a couple of classic sweet Genovese, then a red Genovese, and finally some Mrs. Burns lemon basil. But wherever they do go, make sure your plants have plenty of sun and keep them well watered, especially if you're going into pots or containers. Finally, as with all planting out, you do need to give your new plants a good watering in. This again helps compress the soil around the new roots and gives them good contact for future growth. This is especially important where your soil, like here, is mainly made of compost. Basil loves being with other plants, especially tomatoes. So here in a raised bed we've got some basil, we've got marigolds to attract ladybirds to kill our aphids, and we've got a mature tomato plant growing up here. By the time the tomatoes are grown and ready, the basil will be ready as well. Now to make sure you get nice bushy basil plants, do remember to pluck out the growing tip when the plants are at a decent size, say 30-40 centimetres, 1.5 foot or so. And remember, wherever you're growing something like tomatoes, do try to include a basil plant as well. They grow together, they eat well together. So there we are then, couldn't be simpler. Now if you've liked this video, do please remember, thumbs up down there, and also do subscribe to the channel to see what we come up with next. Thanks very much for watching, see you next time.